Wow, that was something. Episode 5 of The Last Ride. The series as a whole, and episode 5 especially, did an absolutely phenomenal job of showcasing both the legacy The Undertaker is going to leave behind, the character itself, Mark Calloway's personal life, his wrestling career in the final 3 years of his career. At least we hope it's the final 3 years. The documentary did a phenomenal job of doing that, and really, after sitting here and watching the ending to that fifth and final episode of The Last Ride, it really makes you think that Undertaker, he just can't go on as far as more wrestling matches, because after the ending they gave him, the finale they gave him in that episode, where they chronicled from Super Showdown 2019, like the conclusion of that, and what he did from the aftermath of that through the Boneyard match, and then the events following the Boneyard match, the way the WWE Network and the people who made this documentary put that together was absolutely phenomenal. It really was. It was so perfect. And it's the cinematography of it all. It's how they showcase and tell the stories with this WWE Network documentary. Like, the series as a whole was absolutely fantastic. It really was. Like, I'm going to go into kind of like a full review of it in a moment. But overall, if you have not seen The Undertaker, The Last Ride, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, go watch them all. Because they're all worthwhile. They all add up towards the greater goal and the greater message of The Undertaker's farewell. And if this really is the end for Mark Calloway in pro wrestling, he's left behind a legacy that no one else will ever be able to replicate. Undertaker, Mark Calloway, as they talked about in this documentary, he was there from literally 1990 through the dark times, the New Generation era, when everyone was leaving and wrestling was, in the WWF, the most uncool thing imaginable. The Undertaker character was the one constant. Undertaker, he evolved in the Attitude Era when he needed to. He became the Ministry Undertaker and then the Biker Undertaker and Big Evil and all this. And he changed, he evolved the game. And then he got into the 2000s. He returned as the Dead Man. And then he had the WrestleMania Classic after Classic after Classic, Shawn, Triple H. And then he had the decade-long span in the 2010s where he'd get himself up for the big WrestleMania match, and he didn't know how much longer he had to continue. Like, that Undertaker career is one that no one's ever going to be able to replicate, because where pro wrestling is in 30 years, God knows, is pro wrestling even around in 30 years? Given the rate Vince is driving it into the ground, I don't think it will be. Like, pro wrestling and The Undertaker go hand in hand. Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, is synonymous. That character is one of the most iconic pro wrestling things just in general. The Undertaker character. So if this really is the end, thank you, Undertaker. Thank you, Taker. Mark Calloway gave absolutely everything he had to the business, and to that, I and we all should unanimously say thank you for all the entertainment he's brought us. And maybe for you individually, you've seen The Undertaker live. Personally, I haven't seen him live. I have no intention on that, because hopefully I don't get the chance to see him live, because his career should be done and dusted after that final 15 minutes of The Last Ride. Like, the last 10 minutes especially of that episode 5, oh my god. Like, it's one of these things, like the WWE home video, back when they do DVDs and whatnot for documentaries, and then the WWE Network, they do a phenomenal job of really kind of closing the documentaries and leaving you with a feeling of, like, not like emotional, satisfied, like really happy with what you've seen, and they leave you with this like feeling of, oh wow, that's the legacy he'll leave behind. Like, they have the like the montage of Undertaker over the years, him like evolving. You've got people like Batista, JBL, Edge, Steve Austin, Triple H, Vince, Shawn Michaels, AJ Styles, Michelle McCool, all these people adding in their 2 cents about the legacy of The Undertaker and how much The Undertaker did for them personally, and what Mark Calloway did, and all of this. And you've got this like fantastic, like perfect music over the back, and it's just it's such a great retrospect for their career. And that last 10 minutes especially did that so well. You had the the montage retrospect of The Undertaker, then you had Mark Calloway at some not a ranch, but like some kind of really isolated location, really just like looking out, and then the camera just slowly zooms out, and then that's the end. And it was just so perfect, the way they did it. The Undertaker, The Last Ride, if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Now, I'm going to get into like more of a kind of full review of the series. So basically, episode 1 was the main focus of episode 1 was WrestleMania 33, the build up to that match with Roman Reigns, and the main thing that was made known, that was made clear from episode 1 was that in 2017, late 2016, early 2017, Mark Calloway was not physically fit to compete at all. That was like the main emphasis of the episode, the one thing to take away. You saw Undertaker walking around in that episode 1. It looked brutal. Like, the episode 1, I swear to God, like, they showed Undertaker, I remember it was him walking to, was it a production truck or something? It might have been the Hall of Fame. Like, they're showing Undertaker walking, actually, yeah, it was to a production truck the day of WrestleMania 33. He's walking, he's got all the strapping, like, around his hips. He's got, like, a big, like, foam piece on his hip or whatever. He's hobbling around, and you think, he hasn't even wrestled yet. He still has to wrestle the main event of WrestleMania 33. And watching that episode made me think, Undertaker really shouldn't have main evented WrestleMania 33. Like, I get Reigns, Undertaker, it's Vince's company, that's always going to main event, but at the same time, the condition Undertaker was in, it just wasn't right. And Undertaker made that well and truly known. Like, he just was not happy with that WrestleMania 33 match. They showed the WrestleMania 33 match, the moments where Undertaker kind of couldn't lift Reigns, or like his legs would give out and stuff, so that was the main thing with WrestleMania 33 and episode 1, really showing that The Undertaker wasn't in physical condition to compete. And they really showed in episode 1 that Michelle McCool would be a main focus of the series. Undertaker, building himself up towards these matches would be the main focus. Undertaker, how long it takes him to warm up now. That was another big focus of the series, because seeing Undertaker warm up for matches, and he mentioned in episode 5 how it takes him 10 times the time to do something that would be, a quarter of, like, I forget exactly what the quote was. Basically, it's so much harder for him at this age to do things to the level and the quality that he'd like to do it. So that I found awesome, or interesting to see. So that was episode 1. Episode 2 was really good, because that one, I believe from memory, that was the one where he was watching back the matches with Shawn. I believe that was episode 2, or was that episode 3? Episode 2 and 3, I get kind of confused with a little bit, but the main focus of episode 2 really, I remember, was the thing about the Royal Rumble 2018, and how the women were doing their Royal Rumble, and Undertaker was being a real advocate for Michelle McCool, and Undertaker was watching back the match with Roman Reigns, and he's really consolidating, like, that can't be the end of my career. So Undertaker, he's supporting his wife, Michelle McCool, in the 2018 Women's Rumble, the first one ever. He's being like a husband, a father. You really see Mark Calloway like really behind the scenes, which is what episode 2 did so well. Seeing a great look at The Undertaker, seeing him doing training and whatnot, really contemplating, will this be the end? And that became the theme for the series. Would this be the end of Mark Calloway? Like, when would the ending come? Because Undertaker got into this like vicious, repeated cycle of, oh, this is going to be my final match, and then you'd feel disappointed afterwards. Which is why like episode 5 was so good, because the Boneyard match, Undertaker felt no disappointment at all, and he was over the moon with it. So, yeah, episode 2 was good. Episode 3 was the one where we had the build-up to Crown Jewel 2018, and the whole stuff with DX and the Brothers of Destruction, and they're really showcasing Undertaker, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, what they did at WrestleMania 25, 26, 27, 28. Talking about the legacy of The Undertaker, and how great those matches were. The end of an era, Hell in a Cell. Undertaker talking about how much of a moment that was. Really building up towards that Crown Jewel 2018 match, which was an absolute abominable crap show disaster. Alright, that was so terrible. And it was hilarious how in the documentary they made that known. That Crown Jewel match, DX Brothers of Destruction, was so terrible. I don't know how anyone's defended that, with Kane's mask falling off, Triple H tearing his... What did he tear? His bicep? His shoulder? He tore something 4 minutes into a 30-minute match. So it was an absolute disaster. That match, Undertaker couldn't end on that match. It was an absolute disaster. Then they really showcased in episode 4 how Undertaker attended WrestleMania 35, but he made the conscious decision not to compete in the match. So Undertaker was just there, and that was so hard for him, because as someone in The Undertaker who'd been at and competing in every WrestleMania in some capacity since WrestleMania 7, he found that so difficult at WrestleMania 35 to be sitting in Gorilla talking to the guys as they're about to perform. So that really struck a nerve with him. Then they really hype up or talk about the match with Goldberg, the infamous match with Bill Goldberg, Super Showdown 2019. What an absolute train wreck disaster that was. Holy hell. Undertaker Goldberg at Saudi Arabia. Oh my god. First off, I never understood that being a good idea in the first place. Have Undertaker vs. Bill Goldberg. That match was going to go no longer than 3 minutes anyway. And the match itself was an absolute disaster. Goldberg busts his head open on the ring post. Goldberg lifts up Undertaker for a jackhammer. Drops him literally on his neck. 2 inches either side. And that would have paralyzed Undertaker just altogether. So Michelle McCool was, so worried about that match, as she should be, which, shout out to Michelle McCool for liking, a few of my tweets about the last ride. Just big props to you, Michelle. So, anyway, they do that, and that leads seamlessly into episode 5. We see Undertaker at the Performance Center, talking to the big men of, NXT Performance Center, so Keith Lee and all these guys at the PC. That was awesome. They see Undertaker talking about how Extreme Rules 2019, where it was Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre versus him and Roman Reigns, how that match was, if that was the end, then he'd be content with it. But then at the same time, AJ Styles was someone who, as they mentioned in episode 2, I believe, was someone who he compares to a young Shawn, and how AJ Styles is so much like Shawn Michaels, and how Undertaker would always love to work with AJ Styles, and they really built that up so well. So you get to episode 5, and they do the build towards the Boneyard match, and they showcase Undertaker chokeslamming AJ Styles at Super Showdown 2020. They showcase Undertaker doing a MSG show and talks about how important the MSG was to him. And then we eventually get the Boneyard match. They showcase a lot of the Boneyard match, the filming of it. We see Triple H, Jeremy Borash, all them. We see the behind the scenes of the match. We see a bunch of the match. And then we finish the Boneyard match, and we get this beautifully put together 10 to 15 minutes of Undertaker montages, a retrospect of the Undertaker's career. We see Michelle McCool, so much about the series, but Michelle McCool in the last 10 minutes was phenomenal. Just everyone in the last 10 minutes was phenomenal. If you haven't seen anything from the last ride, well, I recommend you go watch the whole series, but if you haven't seen anything, the last 10 to 15 minutes of episode 5, go and watch it. Seriously, it is absolutely amazing. The last 10 to 15 minutes of episode 5, I can't recommend them enough. Really, it just makes you think, thank you, Taker. Thank you for everything, and if this really is the end, which it should be, it's just the perfect finale. We don't want to see Undertaker versus Shane McMahon in a Hell in a Cell match later this year. We don't want to see Undertaker versus anyone after this. The AJ Styles match in the main event of WrestleMania in the Boneyard setting was the perfect farewell for the Undertaker, Mark Calloway, and hopefully that stays that way. Hopefully we don't get the Undertaker returning and tarnishing this amazing legacy he has, because Undertaker's legacy is one that is never going to be replicated, and honestly, just thank you, Undertaker. So, yeah, that's been the review. That's been Undertaker, The Last Ride. I was going to do an episode review for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 separately, but I feel like this whole one video has done it pretty succinctly and pretty well. So, hope you guys have enjoyed. If you haven't seen The Last Ride, definitely go check it out on the WWE Network. It's one of the best things they've done. Seriously, as far as documentaries go, it's one of the best things they've done. So, comment, sub. See ya.